Right, it's 2 o'clock, so we'll make a start. So good afternoon everybody and welcome to today's Planning Committee meeting. The first item 1 on the agenda is apologies for absence, which by the looks of it I don't think we've got anything because all the seats are full. The second item is declaration of interest. Members are requested to declare the existence and nature of any disclosable pecuniary interest and or other interests not already in their register of interest in any item on the agenda and withdraw from the meeting at the appropriate time. Do any members have any interest to declare? No, thank you very much. Our third item is declarations of predetermination. Any member who cannot determine an application solely on the information presented to the committee at the meeting today is asked to declare that they are predetermined on that item on the agenda and withdraw from the meeting at the appropriate time. Do any members have a predetermination on the agenda to declare? Silence again, thank you members. We now move on to item 4, the minutes of our last meeting held on Tuesday the 1st of October 2024. Are we happy that they are a correct record and can we agree them by acclamation? Do I have a mover? Thank you, Councillor Hancock. Thank you. All those in favour? Thank you. Right, that moves on to the main part, our applications for today. The first application is item NED 24/00253/FL Ashover. In line with our normal practices, I'm going to ask the planning officers to give a brief presentation showing any photos and plans of the site. I will allow the officers to complete their presentation. Consequently, members, unless you have a point of order that you feel cannot wait, could you please reserve these or any questions about the process until the end? So I'll now be to Graham for our first application. Thank you.
Thanks, Chair. Just bear with me a second. Right, so this first item is application reference 24/00253/FL. It's for the erection of a self-built dwelling plus associated hard and soft landscaping at Fall Hill Quarry, Ashover. For clarity, the proposal also includes 2 single-bed guest annexes. The proposal was deferred from the last planning committee due to late comments being received from Derbyshire Wildlife Trust. They requested additional information relating to how the proposal would achieve a biodiversity gain and protect on-site habitats. Following the submission of updated information, DWT are now satisfied that the proposal can achieve an overall gain in biodiversity and protect priority habitats on site, ensuring compliance with policy SDC 4 of the local plan. We've got no late representations, and officers consider that the proposed dwelling would represent a design which is of an exceptional quality and accord with paragraph 84 of the NPPF. Matters relating to ecology, highway safety, drainage, land conditions and controlling the use of the proposed guest annexes can be managed by way of conditions. It is therefore recommended for approval. This first slide illustrates the position of the site shaded orange in the wider landscape. Ashover lies to the northwest, Falgate to the south and Littlemore to the northeast. For the purposes of determining this application, the site is within open countryside, away from any defined settlement limit. So this is a more zoomed in view of the site, shaded orange. The proposed dwelling would sit in the northwest corner of the former Fall Hill Quarry. The site is accessed from Hockley Lane, which runs from northwest from Ashover down to Falgate at the south of this slide. Just a bit of clarity as well, the site forms part of a wider SSSI, so Site of Special Scientific Interest, and it's also a regionally important geological site. So this is the location plan submitted with the application. It clarifies the extent of the developable area in red and the other land under the applicant's ownership in blue, extending the full extent of the quarry. So this is a plan of the ground floor of the proposed dwelling. The site entrance can be seen at the bottom of that slide, and a drive will extend towards the dwelling, which is tucked into the north corner of the former quarry. At ground floor, we've got living accommodation provided with 2 guest annexes that you can see to the northwest of that slide. So this is just the first floor plan, further accommodation at first floor level, master bedroom. You've also got a vegetable garden and a more formal garden over the annexes on the northwest of that slide. So this is a useful cross-section which shows the relationship on site with the proposed dwelling, lagoon, footpath, which is on the right-hand side of this slide, and the nearest neighbouring dwelling, which is approximately about 170 metres away from the proposed dwelling. So this is just another cross-section to give you an idea of what's proposed and how it sits in the existing topography of the quarry. And another cross-section, the bottom part of this slide shows the outline of the proposed dwelling behind the existing tree line, which is from Hockley Lane. This final plan just shows the multi-level accommodation and how it would sit in the site. This slide shows the on-site landscaping proposals. You can see that from the site entrance, an informal overseeded driveway is proposed that will lead to the proposed dwelling. A mix of informal grounds and formal garden space is proposed tightly around the proposed dwelling. An informal pond is there just on the right hand side, which will help control surface water, which then in turn goes into the lagoon and into the wider network. And this is a photo taken from the public right of way to the south of the site. So this runs adjacent to the quarry. The proposed dwelling will be tucked in the far corner of that picture. And it also helps illustrate the relationship with the nearest dwelling, which is behind the fence on the right hand side of that picture. And that concludes the presentation, Chair.
Right, thank you for that, Graham. Right, colleagues, we now have 3 speakers on this. I'm first going to bring up Councillor Weatherall, who's the ward member. So when you're ready, if you'd like to come up to the speaker's seat, and you have 3 minutes when you're ready. And you'll be given a warning when there's 30 seconds remaining. Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Am I on speaker? Is that okay? Yeah, thank you. Grateful to the committee and particularly grateful to the chair today. Thank you. There's no doubt that this is going to be a unique and iconic dwelling and development, and it's in a geologically unique setting as well. So there will be an awful lot of interest in this particular development. And I'm hoping that through the interventions of the committee we can perhaps clear up some understandings or misunderstandings that might have occurred. So I've read the design and access statement from cover to cover, and I noted at the beginning of the document the statement that this was a small-scale residential development. As you read on through that document, they're introduced the concept of guests and visitors. And I note again that we've got the separate accommodation. So my question is this a small-scale residential development and 2 Airbnbs? And then as you read on through the document further, it talks about further geologists and other guests on page 74. And throughout the document, it then hints at something that is other than a small-scale residential development. And again, I'd be grateful if the committee can iron out some of those inconsistencies. So there is guest parking on site on page 81. A quote, guests will be permitted to use this route, so there'll be some routes through the site that are permitted for guests and not family, I gather. There will be a rest point for residents and guests. There is the potential location of an interpretation board, such as you find in parks and municipal facilities. And pamphlets will be issued to guests upon arrival. So my question is this a small-scale residential development? Is it a small-scale residential development and Airbnb units? Or is it a small-scale residential development with Airbnb units and a visitor centre or facilities such as you would find in a visitor centre? So some further quotes from the design and access statement. There'll be an office for Paul that can serve as a reception area, such that visitors can find their way once entering the premises. Some garden spaces will be reserved for Paul and Catherine. However, the general approach is to allow visitors to explore the site and enjoy its varying characteristics through the provision of an informal path past key vantage points. There'll be a pavilion next to the site entrance to provide a resting area. Thank you. So if there are going to be visitors, we would like to know, as residents, how many visitors per day, per week, per month, and really, you know, to get some clarity around what actually this development is going to be, bearing in mind it's going to be extremely iconic and very, very interesting. Thank you, committee.
Thank you, Councillor Weatherall. Just before you take your seat, has anybody got any questions for Councillor Weatherall? Councillor Foster.
Thank you, Chair. Thank you for that, Councillor Weatherall. You've asked us to be, as a committee, to be clear on what this is going to be, without repeating all your words. But you didn't give us your view on what you think it's going to be. You're the local councillor. You've read it as much as anybody here, probably more. What do you actually believe it's going to be? What's your opinion?
Yeah, thanks for that question. It depends on the numbers. If there were 1 or 2 visitors per month, then that, I think, would stand as a small-scale residential development. If they're going to be 1 or 2 or maybe dozens per month, per day and dozens per month, I think it brings it into a different arena in terms of the description of what this is. Hockley Lane is a very dangerous road, and access in and out of it. We've had some terrible accidents. I think there was a death recently on that road. I know there's a highways have looked at it, but for me, the clarity I'm seeking is numbers, I guess, on a daily, weekly and monthly basis. Thanks, Councillor.
Thank you. Any further questions? No, well, I think some of those points will be addressed, and we've got questions that we can ask the next speakers. Right, the next speaker on this is Mr. Kennedy, the applicant. Right,
thank you.
Right, Mr. Kennedy, you've got three minutes when you're ready.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Well, for my part, I'll just introduce myself, Paul, and wife Catherine, as the applicants, and to give you a bit of background on how this proposal has come about. The starting point was a desire to build a house somewhere that would allow us to be closer to our son, who works for the National Trust in the High Peak and lives locally with his wife and our first grandchild. When we first came across Fall Hill Quarry, November 2018, it didn't take us long to recognise its potential, and we soon realised that this site and Ashover Village itself were places that we'd love to be. So we began working on how we could turn our ideas into a new home. Our brief to the architect was for a unique dwelling that would do justice to the site, to the setting. We wanted something that would blend into the surrounding scenery and use the rock formations to echo the atmosphere and beauty of the quarry, but at the same time allow nature and the local wildlife to thrive. An important part of this process was putting together a design team that had the necessary expertise in ecology, geology, sustainability and landscape architecture to make sure that we met the strict planning requirements of paragraph 84. This team also had to satisfy Natural England and the Derbyshire Wildlife Trust that we were doing our best to preserve both the geology and the natural habitats of the site. So combining our needs with those of the various consultees hasn't been easy, but we've taken this responsibility quite seriously, and as a result, I think the proposal we've put before you today respects the quarry and its surrounding landscapes, and gives us the opportunity to protect its ecology and preserve the SSSI status. The architectural design has been shown to meet the exceptional standards of paragraph 84, but it also provides educational opportunities in architecture, sustainability and ecology that paragraph 84 encourages. It also allows access to the geological features that was requested by Natural England, and the Passive House standard guarantees that the building's environmental impact will be kept to a minimum. I understand the point raised in response about concern over the house becoming a holiday business. I mean, I would stress that this is to be our permanent home, and part of what attracts us to the site is its peace and tranquility. So the last thing we want really is for that to be disrupted. But that said, we do anticipate attracting some visitors, because the idea is to have a design and a landscape that we'd like to share and we'd be proud to share, and something that people would want to experience and learn from. Going a bit off script, I can't give you the numbers without trying to stress that we're of an age now. We started this project 6 years ago, and perhaps different aspects there. We don't want to have a full-time business running a holiday park. Sorry, but thank you for that. Thank you for listening.
Right, do any members have any questions? Councillor Foster.
Thank you, Chair. Yeah, I'll give you the same chance that gave Councillor Weatherall to explain a little more about the numbers. You've said that you can't give any numbers at the minute. Bear with me. I understand that. You said it's going to be a permanent home, and it's about being proud to share that area, in your words, but not running a business. Now, you said not a full-time business. Now, as I see it, it does look like a business. It looks like a business supporting a really nice place to live. And people do that, and there's nothing wrong with that. But if that is what it is, I'd like it to be called what it is. So yeah, that's what it looks like to me. It looks like two separate developments there that people can come and stay. While it's not a full-time business, as you've said, it looks like a business.
Yeah.
So if you've got any comments on numbers, if you can think of any, that would be appreciated. Thank you, Chair.
Sorry. As I said, I think probably when we first started out on this, we felt that some sort of holiday feature would be needed to help fund the project, help sustain the project. But over time, and having had other experience of holiday lettings, it's not going to be. It's a lot of hard work in running it. So my anticipation is that it would probably be in the, I don't know, in the 2s and 3s a month rather than the dozens. It had been our intention to open it as under the National Garden Scheme, which is what we've done at home presently with our existing garden. But that wouldn't be, and couldn't be, a mass opening for loads of people, because it just wouldn't, doesn't lend itself safety-wise to volumes of people. So we would see as a National Garden Scheme opening upon invitation. So if somebody would inquire to come under the National Garden Scheme to have a look round in couples or small units, and we'd show them around. Yes, we'd like to have visitors to come and see it, and I think part of the paragraph 85 wants people to learn from the architecture, the design, and Natural England wanted to show off want to have access certainly to the geology. We've had universities interested in coming and having a look and doing a bit of survey work and photography and stuff for us. They're quite interested in that. But I don't see it as massive numbers, and it can't be massive numbers. It can't be children because of the safety of the site or the hazards on the site. So the two units themselves are literally one bed, so two people, And bearing in mind we've got family as well, because we're coming up from Kent, we're coming up to be closer to our son and family, but there's people from home, you know, obviously we'd want to share it with. Is that, yeah.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr Kennedy. Has anybody got any further questions? Councillor Rouse.
Yeah, it is now. Did you actually look into the history of the area? Because obviously, Blue Lagoon, we know it as. So did you look into the background?
Insofar as what? Insofar as what, recent events or
Well, yeah,
this history?
recent
Yes.
past events, what's happened?
Yeah.
Did you research all that?
If you're talking about the tragic death there, yes.
It's okay then.
Because we felt, again, whenever we've come up here, there's been evidence of people coming through the fence and accessing it, and rubbish and incursions, if that's the word, onto the site. I always come up armed with rubbish bags and barbed wire and tools to patch and water perimeter and patch it from time to time, because it's quite evident that other people are going in, and I feel that being on site will hopefully prevent that, because it is a dangerous site, quite obviously.
It is.
I would hope that it would, by being occupied, have somebody on site there, that any of that sort of behaviour, anything antisocial, you know, we say about preserving the environment, preserving the Triple SI. We've seen campfires alongside orchid growth. We've seen evidence of rocks being broken to take away the mineralogy that's obviously the value of the site. I've seen minerals for sale online, sourced from Full Hill Quarry. And you think that it doesn't, you know, we want to get there to protect all this before it's too late. You know, we're not. I've said all along, we're not somebody who wants to come in and bulldoze it and concrete it all over and just do our thing. I want to respect and be a custodian of the site, which includes making sure that it's a safe place to be.
Okay, then,
I mean,
thank you.
one of the very first things we did, bearing in mind, I'm going back 6 years since we first saw it. It's probably 4 years since we bought it. One of the first things we did was take down a lot of the dodgy trees on the roadside. We had tree surgeons go in there to that. We replaced the fencing along that footpath, because that was all ramshackle, and it just felt like the right thing to do, and that's what we wanted to make sure we were doing right by the site.
Okay, thank you very much. Thank you.
Thank you, Chair. Mr Kennedy, with all due respect, the problem here seems to be the word holiday accommodation. Quite frankly, if holiday accommodation did not crop up in the documentation, it would have been a lot easier. I understand the logic about the architecture, and particularly I understand the geology and the interest from the academic institutes. That's prime, and I think that's where you'll get your most attraction from, people coming. But I think the problem we've listened to what's been talked about here is holiday accommodation. If we can remove that terminology from that paperwork, I think it'll be a lot more comfortable.
So yes, I understand. It's.
My question is, do you really want to have holiday accommodation or not? Which is what we're all been asking.
I don't see it, and I wouldn't want. This is sounding weird. The traditional holiday makers. It wouldn't. We wouldn't. We want people, and I think the people who would want to come are the people who are sensitive to the site. It's not a holiday site. It's not a holiday park. It will attract certain people with certain interests, be it environment, ecology, architecture, design, because we have part of the paragraph 84 is to show off the design, have something that people can learn to construct, because the construction of it, Passive House or Passive House Plus standards, is still a rare thing, and we're keen to share that and show people how to do the right thing. I don't know how. Obviously, it's been conditioned, but I think the conditions are much a standard condition for sort of those sort of visiting accommodation. I don't see it being advertised on Airbnb, because Airbnb kind of has a, it sounds awful saying, but type of person who uses it. But it's, to me, we would be, I'd be happy having just people who have an academic interest, who have an interest in nature, interest in the architecture, something we can relate to. I'm not going to relate to anybody who comes to have a party. I'm not going to have, and because it's not designed for children, it can't be designed for children, because I'd be too worried about what was going on. And like I said in my presentation, I don't want the hassle or the aggravation or the noise or the trouble when we're just coming there for the peace and quiet, but we're going to have hopefully something we're proud of and proud to show off, and that people will want to come and see. And I can't say more than that. I don't, and I wouldn't cope with people coming in, check out, check in, check out, check in, and just a constant stream, because we want to be there to enjoy it as well. And part of my enjoyment will be sharing the experience, but not having hordes of holidaymakers and parties and stag weekends or whatever. That's not the target audience.
Thank you, Mr. Kennett. Have you got a question, Councillor Gay?
Yeah, I disappeared.
Yeah.
Yeah, my question, thanks, Chair. My question is just about, what's the access like now? I mean, you mentioned people coming in for nefarious activities, but are people coming in to look for these rare butterflies, for example? I mean, I've never seen a Dinter skipper. I'm quite interested in coming.
Well,
you know, what's that situation like? I know I've been to disused quarries looking for butterflies, and I know that's quite common. I mean, is there ingress into it for the general public at the moment?
Since we've been there, I've had nobody ask and nobody contact us to do it. Natural England have said that they need to have access to it and be provided to access to it, and they've given us the rules for how we, you know, what we have to maintain and what we have to give access to, and how close to the rock faces and so on we can and can't build. But nobody has come forward to me and said, I'm not sure how they find out who owned it, but I've not had any petitions or requests to come and view that. But part of my idea is to have it more available to people. So like I say, maybe I don't, through the National Garden Scheme or through Derbyshire Wildlife Trust, have it such that people can contact us to say, can I come and see? And I don't think, have we seen a dingy skipper? No. But again, we're keen to preserve that and plant it according to what the food sources and so on that the butterflies need to help with that. But yeah, it's to make it available, but no, so far. I mean, and if you're talking about access, the existing access, I misunderstood where you were possibly going with that, but the access was as it existed for the quarry lorries. So the entranceway is quite substantial. Obviously, highways are quite happy with what they've seen, but it is. There's not a footpath going through, but again, Natural England wanted us. I think point was made about the notice boards. Natural England were keen for any visitors to make sure they were fully informed, such that they didn't pocket an interesting looking rock and run off with it. So the notice boards were specifically for them to say, this is the history, this is the site, these are the points of interest, because there's various areas where there are different types of rock, so that people could. Because as I say, the university professors who've been out, they're scrambling all over it and saying, oh, there's some of this and some of that. But Joe Public would probably want to know what this bit is and what. So again, I don't want. It's not designed for us to be as a traditional garden, but I wouldn't want a garden with notice boards all over the place, ruining the views. So it will be information panels, possibly quite small, like a QR code or something, just so people can understand what they're looking at. And the pathways, they're not sort of for public to walk through unaccompanied, but at least to guide them to a certain point. So a pathway goes to a point of interest because it is of interest and it's something valuable, and to keep them on the straight and narrow rather than trampling over the orchids and the dingy skipper habitats and so on. Is that, yeah, sorry.
Thank you, Mr Kennedy. I think you can retake your seat. No further questions. Right. Thank you. Right, the next speaker is Mr Michael Gordon, the agent. You have 3 minutes when you're ready.
Thank you, Chairman, members of the committee. I speak as planning agent in respect to this application, and I'm proud to have worked with the applicants and council officers to present this dwelling of exceptional quality before you, which is a very high bar to meet. Your planning officer has evaluated the application in detail and has made a recommendation of approval for full planning application. The applicant's aspiration is to deliver their lifetime home at the site, and I've worked with a professional project team over an extended period of time dating back to 2019 to deliver this. The process has included early engagement with Natural England, several engagements with Design Midlands Design Review Panel, who are a body undertaking rigorous consideration of design matters, and pre-application engagement with North East Derbyshire Council. The applicants have also engaged with the Parish Council and neighbours. There are no technical objections to the new house in respect of highways, drainage, landscape, design, ecology and amenity. The site is located in a triple SI, and this fact has been a significant consideration in the design of the proposal before you. Both Natural England and the Derbyshire Wildlife Trust have confirmed they have no objection to the proposal subject to conditions that will ensure the long-term protection and enhancement of the site. The dwelling will meet a Passive House Plus standard, far exceeding standard building requirements of building control, and again this will be secured by an agreed condition on the planning decision. Concerns that the scheme is a purely commercial venture are unfounded. The application is pursued as a self-build development by the applicants who intend to enter into a legal agreement to confirm this. Paragraph 84E of the NPPF is clearly a significant material consideration in the determination of this planning application that would allow the development to proceed in principle. The dwelling before you has evolved in light of feedback to extensive engagement and discussions, and your officer supports the conclusion that the scheme would meet this test of paragraph 84E, being an exceptional design that is truly outstanding, reflecting the highest standards in architecture, helping to raise standards of design more generally in rural areas, and will significantly enhance its immediate former quarry setting and be sensitive to the defining characteristics of the local area. This is an opportunity to create a unique and truly outstanding new home in the Derbyshire countryside. We respectfully request you consider the evidence before you in relation to this application and support your planning officer's assessment for approval. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr Gordon. Do any members have any questions? Can we please make sure these just relate to the points that the speaker has raised? Thank you.
It doesn't matter whether it's the agent or the applicant. As a point of order, if you have questions, you can ask the agent or the applicant anything. It's only the objectors or the supporters where it has to be limited.
Thank you, Chair. I don't mind you coming back to me on that, whether we can ask him. But mine was about what Mr Gordon had actually stated, which is, just quickly, all this seems to hang on 84E. That's what it all hangs on, that. It's about the definition of isolated homes. That's been made clear in the report. Completely got that. And I know where we are with local plan and the neighbourhood plan. But getting to the part which all this hangs on, it only hangs on this one element, 84E. And when we read that, truly outstanding, reflecting the highest standards in architecture. Yeah, got that. We're not asking, it says unless one of more of the following circumstances apply. We're not asking for A to E, but we're asking for all of E because it's got ands in between. So when we read the policy, this is how I understand it, and I'll happily be corrected by our planning officers at any time. So we've got truly outstanding, reflecting the highest standards in architecture and would help raise the standards of design more generally in rural areas. Now, I'm not sure about that one. I'm looking for that to be explained and proved to me by you here. It's a chance for you to say on behalf of your client why it does that. Would significantly enhance its immediate setting. I'm not convinced of that at all, but I'm happy to be convinced, just to give you a chance, and be sensitive to the defining characteristics of the local area. I'm happy for that one as well. So there's 5 there, and for me it's the last 3 I'd like you to explain to me and to the committee, because I think it's fair, why it fulfills all of those. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you. In terms of the architecture, raising standards of architecture, obviously we've been through 2 design review panels with.
Chair, if you don't mind me saying, there's 5. The first 2 have got. It's the last 3. Thank you, Chair.
In terms of the first one being raising design standard design in rural areas.
I'll let you carry
Yeah.
on.
So essentially, I suppose by the quality of the design itself, in terms of its architectural materiality being of local precedent, working with the site itself in terms of how the form of the development has come forward in terms of its design. That's essentially, and essentially once that building is delivered and is in situ, by viewing that, we feel that will enhance or be an enhancement from excuse me, from an architectural perspective that people can view in that area. So essentially, and as I say, we've been through the design review panel process on at the request of North East Derbyshire Council Planning Department, been through various iterations, come back from various members of that committee who assess rigorously the architectural merits of a scheme, and they have found that the design could be viewed as truly exceptional and to meet that point of raising the design of the architecture from a rural perspective. I suppose the rural perspective is insofar as well, because the site has to be isolated in planning terms, it has to be in a rural location. So that architecture sits within a rural area anyway, and because it's considered to be of exceptional quality, we consider it will meet that point of raising the architectural standards from that perspective. In terms of the next point, in terms of significantly enhancing the immediate setting, I suppose again that can be visually in terms of both the architecture and how the landscape surrounding the site can be viewed. We are showing a biodiversity net gain or an ecological net gain as part of the scheme, and we'll be entering there are conditions in place to ensure that those enhancements are fulfilled for a significant period of time to make sure that the ecological and biodiversity nature of the site is enhanced for the long term. And essentially, I suppose the opinion is, given what Mr Kennedy has said previously about how the site is currently used with trespassers, by not doing anything, then the site could essentially be ruined further down the line. That is something that could happen, and by entering into this agreement from a condition perspective, we will ensure that the actual landscape setting of the site itself is enhanced and maintained for future generations to enjoy. And in terms of the defining characteristics of the local area, I suppose in terms of the actual design itself, it is very local because the design is focused on the actual setting of the quarry itself. I think we've called it mineral house, given the geological importance of the site, and the way both the actual form of the building has taken relates to the minerality, and also the choice of materials as well, has tried to keep it as local and sympathetic to the immediate setting and local area as possible.
Thank you. Any more members got any questions? No, if you'd like to retake your seat. Thank you. Right then, colleagues, you'll now have the opportunity to put questions to the officers about the application. As always, I would like to keep this part of the proceedings focused on getting clarity about any points you are not sure of. Once we have done this, we can then have our discussion about the application based on all we have heard and read. Over to you. Anybody got any questions? No questions for officers? Thank you. Right, I'll now open the floor for debate. Councillor Foster.
I'll go first, Chair. Thank you very much. Firstly, I'd like to explain that I don't know if this has been discussed at the last planning meeting. I wasn't at the last planning meeting. Was it deferred straight away? Okay, thank you. Just in case these arguments hadn't already been made, I didn't want to repeat what other people had discussed. First point I'd like to cover is I'm concerned about the actual planning report itself. It doesn't feel very balanced, and I hope that's taken as I've said it. I have got concerns about it. It's to do with how the local plan's been mentioned and how the Ashover neighbourhood plan's been mentioned, and how we've pulled out 84E and how it's been presented. It doesn't feel like a very balanced report. I hope that'll be taken as I've meant it. I won't say any more on that. My concerns around this are how we've used elements of the local plan when it suits us, and we've ignored the major parts, SS9, when it doesn't. But we've accepted SDC 12 and SDC 3. Same with the Ashover plan, AP2, but not AP2, but AP12. So when it comes to the throughout this report, it feels like we've picked and chosen, and then we've finally found and we've settled on paragraph 84 of the NPPF E. Now, I think it's all about where we put the weight of our judgment as a planning committee. And I'll happily be interrupted at any time by planning officers if I'm getting any of this wrong, as usual. But it looks like it goes completely against the local plan, SS9. It goes against the Ashover neighbourhood plan, and we've been asked to accept this based on the NPPF 84E. While it doesn't meet A to D of paragraph 84, it meets some of E, but it has to meet all of E. And I tried to be open and honest at the very beginning with my question to Mr. Gordon. I feel it's truly outstanding. I think it reflects the high standards in architecture. Whether it raises standards of design more generally in rural areas, that hasn't been proved to me. But also, it's got to significantly enhance its immediate setting. It's got to significantly enhance it. I don't think there's any proof of that at all. And it's got to. And it's got to be sensitive to the defining characteristics of the local area. That's a matter of opinion, and everybody will have a different opinion here. But I certainly don't think it fulfills all of E, which is what it needs to do. Now, the reason why it looks like I'm being picky, just on this small point here, we're being asked to use this small point of paragraph 84E and all of it, all 5 points, to outweigh the local plan and the neighbourhood plan, which it clearly doesn't fit at all. And we're not concentrating on the neighbourhood plan here, which is where I put, as you've heard me say here before, an awful lot of weight. So we're pushing the local plan to one side, we're pushing the neighbourhood plan to one side, and then we're really trying our best to find one small part of the NPPF, which I don't think I've used this before, this part, and say that all of these elements in E actually fit. So for me, it's not enough. That's how I feel. When it comes to the actual motions, I won't be proposing a motion to not give this permission, but I certainly won't be voting for it. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Councillor Hunter. Councillor Hancock.
Thanks, Chair. I half agree with Mark and half disagree with him, to be truthful. I know where he's coming from, because it does make it difficult when we've got policies that don't necessarily align. We are falling back on 84E, a lot of which is very subjective. The bit where I differ with him is in terms of it. I do think it significantly enhances it, and particularly it's taking an area where there is trespassing an area which is very run down, and it is adding a lot of quality to it. So, yeah, I agree with the first half of what he said. I differ on the second part because I can see where that balance is. So for me, the fact that it is enhancing it, it's taking away what is antisocial behaviour, and whilst I understood Councillor Weatherall's concerns about the holiday let and the potential implications of there, I feel that they've been addressed in what speakers have said. So I would actually support officers' recommendations on this one when it does come to the vote.
If we're looking at 84, Chairman, I find that 84B actually does. This does actually go with that because it is going to look after the future of the SSI, which at the moment, because it's open, is being damaged. But once you get somebody there to look after it, that will keep that heritage site looked after. So I find that 84B is in fact being looked after and is, you know, what we need to do.
Thank you. Councillor Foster.
Thank you, Chair. As it's a debate, I'll come back on both those points. I think B, I don't think it's classified as a heritage asset at all, and the application isn't based on that. So it's not a heritage. It's not a heritage. We'll hear from officers. They'll be able to. But the actual application isn't based on that. It's not based on 84B. So I don't think we can give it permission based on something we just consider, or one person considers it fits. So it's not a heritage asset. That's the first thing. I'll have some clarity off officers on that. And to follow on what my colleague and friend next to me, David, has said about significantly enhance its immediate setting. I haven't heard anything from Councillor Hancock either, or only on that it would prevent antisocial behaviour. Hang on, that doesn't significantly enhance its immediate setting, and it's also nowhere in the report. That's not in the report either. So that's where I stand. Thank you, Chair.
I've seen that on somewhere.
I will.
Thank you, Councillor Foster. I'm going to bring planning officer back in.
Thanks, Chairman. Thanks for the questions. Yeah, just on the heritage asset question. So the site's not got any list of buildings or non-designated heritage asset. I suppose you could argue it's got local importance from its past mineral activity, but I don't think it would trigger being that a heritage asset. So it is of geological importance, the rig site, and it's also part of a wider triple SI. So on the points about the raising the standards, the architectural design is, so the proposal is for a passive house plus design, so that does raise the standards. I'm not aware of any houses in North East Derbyshire that are of that standard. There can't be many in the wider district either, so in the county, I would have thought. So enhancing its immediate setting, it's a landscape-led scheme helping to protect and enhance that priority habitat and the geological features. We heard from the applicant that people are selling rocks from within the site, and we've heard about the unfortunate events that have happened in the past, and the police do raise comments. I think it's at 7.31, and they talk about the opportunity to tackle the historical misuse of the site. So I think that's a real opportunity for us, and sensitive to the local area. You know, the design responds to the quarry setting, and we believe it's sympathetic to the materials that we found in the quarry, and be sympathetic and raise that standard of the local area.
Thank you. Anybody else want to contribute to this debate? No? Oh, sorry, Councillor again.
Yeah, I like the sound of this because I want the triple SI to be looked after and continue, and people to have access where it's appropriate. I am a bit worried about these, what might be seen as holiday accommodation. And I obviously we had the answer from the applicant. But have you got any comments on that? Has the planning officer got any comments on that?
Yeah, sure. Yeah, I think we've had a little bit of a discussion about that, and we have tried to control the use. So condition 3 talks about the limitations of the use. So the use is controlling the self-contained annexes for the educational accommodation, holiday accommodation, and ancillary accommodation for the applicant. So we've tried to control that can't be sublet or sold off. And we don't believe that any further controls on that site would be necessary in an amenity or highway safety needs. You know, if members were concerned about that, we could potentially look down the route of a visitor management plan or adapting that condition if if that's what members have got concerns about. And that's perhaps something you can debate.
Thank you for that. Anybody else want to contribute or thinks about, has anybody got any thoughts on the visitor management group as condition?
Yeah, on that bit, if I'm honest from what's been said, I'm less concerned about the overnight visitors and the other bit, to be truthful, which I've not mentioned, it isn't something that I don't think we can condition on, is they're more likely to get more visitors from the National Garden Scheme than they are from what's staying. But I don't actually think that's really relevant, because even anybody, I could open mine up to the National Garden Scheme if they accepted it. It could be anywhere, so I don't think that's necessarily something that would be appropriate. You'd need Deborah Bellamy, but...
Thank you. Right, I'm now going to open the floor to motions. Having heard everything today and the officer recommendation before us, what is the view of the committee on the application? I am now opening the floor to motions.
I'm happy to move that we accept officer recommendations, Chair.
So we've got a proposer, Councillor Hancock, and a seconder from Councillor Elliott. We'll do this on the screen on your speaker. We can get the voting up, please. Right, thank you very much. That has passed. 9-1. Thank you very much for everyone's input.
So there you go.
Just while people are moving out, your point of order, you were correct, Councillor Hancock. It's just my speaking notes didn't relay that information correctly, so. So now we'll move on to the second application, which is NED/24/00601/FL, Shearland and IM. In line with our normal practices, I am going to ask the planning officers to give a brief presentation showing any photos and plans of the site. I'll allow the officers to complete the presentation. Consequently, members, unless you have a point of order that you feel cannot wait, could you please reserve these or any questions about the process until the end? And I'll leave Stephen Wiggleworth on this. Thank you.
Okay, so this application is for removal of existing garages and hard standing and the erection of 5 affordable bungalows with associated landscaping, shared drive and car parking. We've got amended plans and it's at a garage site at Byron Grove, Stonebroom. You have in your late representations pack a few representations received. The Coal Authority's updated comments mean that the recommended condition 3 and 4 can be deleted. This is the site. The applicant is Rucknold Homes. The existing site has approximately 9 garages on the site, some still in use, approximately 4. Much of the site is grass and there is a sign up on the grass announcing no ball games. The site is accessed off Byron Grove, which is to the east of the site. To the northeast of the site there is Kingsley Crescent, and to the north there is Cleveland Road. Immediately to the west of the site there are fields. With the exception of the adjoining fields, the site is surrounded by residential development with rear gardens facing onto the site. The site is within the settlement. Sure. The site is within the settlement development limits and within a character area identified by the neighbourhood plan as Stone Broom Crescent. Number 10 Byron Grove has a vehicular access from the rear garden directly onto the site. This is the site plan. This is the block plan and shows the proposed layout, 2 pairs of semi-detached dwellings and 1 detached, and the associated parking, gardens and tree and shrub and hedge planting. The dwellings are all 2-bedroomed, meet the national space standards and have adequate sized gardens which meet the standards set out in our Successful Places guidance. We have received objections from numbers 10 and 16 Byron Grove for, amongst other things, the loss of the garage plots they rent on the site. As set out in the report, the garages are considered to be of value locally to the community. Of the 9 remaining garages on this site, approximately 4 are rented out. The neighbourhood plan specifically allows for these sites to be repurposed, and therefore, despite them being of value locally, their proposed loss is not considered to be reason to recommend refusal of this application. It is also worth noting that there is an annotation on the plan which states that the existing access from the site to number 10 Byron Grove will be retained. This shows the amended design for plot 5, which is more simple and much improved in comparison to earlier versions. Note that solar panels have been negotiated onto the south-facing roof slope. These are the semi-detached dwellings proposed for plots 3 and 4. Solar panels can be achieved on the front-facing roof slope. These are the semi-detached dwellings proposed for plots 1 and 2. Solar panels have been negotiated onto the front-facing roof slope. This shows the access to the site from Byron Grove between 10 and 12 Byron Grove. This is the site itself, and you can see the access to the rear of number 10 Byron Grove off the site. Just there in the right hand side of the slide. This is further slides of the site, just showing the garages. And this is stud right at the bottom end of the site where the garages are, just looking across the whole site. So subject to the suggested conditions, the proposal is considered to be in accordance with the policies of the development plan. It will offer new housing within the settlement development limits on a currently underutilised garage site. Thank you.
Thank you. Can you just switch your speaker off? Right, colleagues, we have 2 speakers on the second application, the first of which is Dorothy Wright, an objector to the application. They will have 3 minutes to get over their points and will be informed when 30 seconds remain. If you'd like to take your seat, please. Right, you've got 3 minutes whenever you're ready, Mrs. Wright. Thank you.
all right? Yeah. As you know, I live at number 10, Byron Grove, and the street is not wide enough because my son tried to get up the street yesterday and he'd got that much space to get through cars, vans and things, and you can't get up the drive because it's a drive, not a road, and I want to keep that drive because I need to get out of my house. I can't walk very well. Some days I can't stand, so I need access, as you know. And if they take that drive, they'll have to put gas, electric, water and sewerage, and I need that little tiny gate to get out of there. Now, if they move, if they do that, I shan't be able to get out of my yard because my kitchen door goes out onto that yard, and if they go other than that, I shan't be able to get out.
Is that all you've got to say? Yeah. Is that all you've come along to say about your access to the rear?
Well, as I say, we cannot get up the street because some of the the people that live on the street have got 2 and 3 cars. They park right under my edge on the pavement. So if you want to walk up the street, you've got to walk on the road. And the dustbin men can't get up very well. Some days you have to leave it at end at street and they have to fetch the dustbins up. It's not feasible.
Okay, thank you for that. Do any members have any questions for Mrs. Wright? No, if you'd like to retake your seat, please. Thank you very much. Right, the next speaker is the applicant. So Neil, you've got 3 minutes whenever you're ready. Thank you.
Thank you, Chair. Sorry. This application is actually part of a much larger regeneration programme to replace 50 post-war council-owned prefabricated bungalows in Stonebroom. The proposals in front of you today allow us to build new homes, if it is accepted, that will be directly provided for residents of the existing prefab bungalows that we are looking to replace in due course. The existing council-owned garage site is brownfield, and the majority of it is unused, as you've seen from the pictures. There are 20 plots that are available to rent on this site from the District Council, 3 of which are currently in occupancy, and only 1 of the council's garages are actually occupied at this time. We are working with the people who use this garage facility to help them move to another garage space on another council site within Stonebroom. The new bungalows, as I mentioned, provide permanent homes for the customers who are due to lose their homes on the prefab site just round the corner, and we will be bringing further proposals forward in due course next year. The following consultation with local residents and taking account of pre-planning advice, the original proposal for 7 bungalows on this site have been reduced to the 5 on this application. The properties are of a very high quality. They meet national space standards for affordable rent homes. We've incorporated solar panels. They will have clean energy sources through heat pumps, supported with energy from the solar panels to keep costs down for residents renting these properties. They're all 2-bed to a good size so that we can make sure that the residents living there can access care and support and their families should they wish to stay over.
And as council planning officer has mentioned, we are respecting the access to number 10 Byron Grove. It's an historical access that has been there a long time, and we are prepared to accept that, although technically it isn't part of that dwelling, but we are prepared to accept that as a gesture towards the concerns that have been raised today. So we are recommending this because it fits part of the larger proposals to provide high quality homes for rent for the residents of Stonebroom. This is not just speculative development, this is about making sure that we have the best possible range of high quality homes for this part of the district.
Thank you. Do any members have any questions for the speaker? Councillor Rouse.
No. Of course, I'm concerned about the ladies' access. Can you just sort of explain how she will get that access, what's needed?
Yeah, so as it stands at the moment, there is an historical access from the rear of number 10 out onto the garage site and then up the access road onto Byron Grove. Now, that there is, because of the length of time that has been in place and because there is an evidence of use of it, we are prepared to accept that access and incorporate the space required for a vehicle to get onto number 10. Technically speaking, there is no legal right to that other than the historical use. It's not part of the tenancy, it's not part of the right to use the garage site as it is at the moment, but we acknowledge that because of the length of time that it has been used, because of the concerns that have been raised by the resident, we are prepared to incorporate that into our proposals. And part of the reason of reducing the number of plots on site from 7 to 5 is to allow for sufficient space for that and to take account of concerns about number of vehicle movements, access for waste teams and things like that. So we've listened to the concerns and we've reduced the number of plots.
So will you be letting her know? Sorry. So will you sort of put it in black and white for Mrs. Wright?
Yeah.
That's what you're going to do?
Absolutely, yeah.
Thank you.
Right, Councillor Hancock.
It was the same as Kathy's question, so it's been covered.
It is worth pointing out, I've just had solicitors point out to me that is a private property matter, not a material consideration regarding the planning. Councillor Jones.
Yeah, can I just pick up a bit more on this discussion? When you looked at the 7 versus 5, did you look at whether you could put 1 or 2 garages in there for private rental? Because there seems to be enough room there to do it, even retaining the movements for the dustbin.
In all the years I've been doing this, which is a long time, 17 years, we've never yet built a garage. We're a social housing provider. Our sole focus is on providing high quality homes for people to rent. We don't build garages, unfortunately. So I accept the point and there may be space, but in terms of planning officer advice and local community concerns, we've reduced 2 plots. There is more space on the site now, and our primary concern is about high quality homes.
Okay, thank you.
No further questions? If you'd like to retake your seat then, please now. Right then, colleagues, you now have the opportunity to put questions to the officers about the application. As always, I would like to keep this part of the proceedings focused on getting clarity about any points you are not sure of. Once we have done this, we can then have our discussion about the application based on all that we have heard and read. Any questions for officers? Right. Now open the floor for debate. Councillor Jones.
I think I'm a little concerned with the response I had. It appears that there is sufficient room for a garage, but it wasn't considered because it didn't fall within his definition of his responsibilities. So I'm a bit concerned that there could have been a bit more flexibility there. I'd like the plan officer's view.
I mean, it hasn't been explored with the applicant, but, you know, whether they would put a garage on, but obviously we've heard from them. We do need space on this site though for biodiversity net gain, and to fit extra built environment into the scheme would obviously take away from the space we've got left available for biodiversity net gains. So I don't know whether it's feasible in that respect.
So in fact, it hasn't been looked at.
Well, is that on? I mean, we have to determine a planning application on its individual merits as it's presented. So the scheme proposed to us does not have garages, and is acceptable in our view in planning terms.
Right then, colleagues, if no one else wants to contribute, do you putting your hand up now? Just stretch it. Having read everything today and the officer's recommendations before us, what is the view of the committee on the application? I am now opening the floor to motions. Councillor Hancock.
Thanks, Chair. I think this one's a bit of a no-brainer. I'll just go with officer recommendations.
Have we got a second then?
I'll second that.
Okay. Right, if we can put that to the vote then, please. Right, that application has passed. Thank you, members.
Well, I mean, the last couple.
Right, we'll move on to the last application for today. This is NED/24/00642FL Shirland and Iron. In line with our normal practices, I'm going to ask the planning officer to give a brief presentation showing any photos and plans of the site. I will allow the officers to complete the presentation. Consequently, members, unless you have a point of order that you feel cannot wait, could you please reserve these or any questions about the process until the end? And I believe you're doing this one as well, Stephen? Yeah. Okay, over to you.
Thank you, Chair. The proposal is for the erection of a new community hall with preschool facility and food bank, associated car parking and play area. We have amended plans and it's at land adjacent to 42 Cleveland Road, Stonebroom. The late representations take the number of objections received up to 7, and we have received further comments from the Environmental Health Officer and Lead Local Flood Authority. The Environmental Health Officer has advised amendments to Condition 6 to control noise from the air conditioning unit at source, and an additional condition for a noise management plan. The Lead Local Flood Authority have suggested 2 additional conditions necessary to make the development acceptable. These additional and amended conditions from the Environmental Health Officer and Lead Local Flood Authority are shown in your late representations document and now form part of the suite of recommended conditions. The site is located in Stonebroom within the settlement development limits. The neighbourhood plan identifies the area as the Stonebroom Crescent character area. The site is surrounded by residential development including both houses and flats. The site would be accessed via Cleveland Road. The site comprises an existing parking area, amenity space associated with the flats on Queensway,
on land formerly part of the gardens of 40 and 42 Cleveland Road, now fenced off. There are a few mature trees on the site, including sycamore, silver birch and rowan. The sycamore and silver birch are are identified as being of moderate quality and intended to be retained by the scheme. Birkenstyle Avenue to the north is located to the north, where we have number 15 and number 20 Birkenstyle Avenue adjoining the site. Cleveland Road is located to the south of the site, where number 40 and 42 Cleveland Road adjoin the site. And Queensway is to the east of the site, which is where the flats numbers 12 to 18 are. This is the location plan. This is the proposed block plan as amended. It shows the community centre, the access and parking, the mulch and grass play areas, as well as the proposed tree planting. It's also important to note and consider the impact of the development on the size of the amenity spaces left for the adjoining flats, particularly as the scheme much reduces the space available to them. The remaining space is, however, within the standards set out in our Successful Places guidance, which is 25 metres squared per flat, and therefore, whilst it is reduced, it is still considered to be adequate and therefore acceptable in planning terms. Some of the proposed tree planting would affect these reduced amenity spaces, particularly the flats on Queensway, by overshadowing, and to address this we have required a condition to agree the landscaping and tree planting. Other points to note are our concerns in relation to noise from the premises from the proposed development to the adjoining properties. This includes noise from the users and activities, the preschool play and apparatus such as an aircon unit. The Environmental Health Officer has reviewed our suggested conditions, added some detail and a further condition which are shown in the late representations document. The applicant's acoustician considers that the existing fence to 40 and 42 Cleveland Road is adequate to deal with noise and that other noise will be within acceptable tolerance. However, the Environmental Health Officer explains that the noise should be compared to the identified background noise, a daytime one of 41 decibels. The Environmental Health Officer still has concerns in relation to the impact of noise on surrounding properties, because the noise report shows these background noise levels would be exceeded as it shows 49 decibels to Birkenstyle Avenue. We share these concerns and therefore we have proposed a suite of conditions to protect residential amenity from noise, including limiting hours of operation, no amplified sound, provision of an acoustic fence, limiting noise from the aircon unit and a requirement of a noise management plan, which the Environmental Health Officer agree are necessary and capable of ensuring the background noise levels in the gardens of adjoining properties are not exceeded. This is the amended design for the proposed building. We consider this much improved as it reduces the width of the gables and reduces the massing of the building. The building is proposed in red brick with concrete tiles and we have negotiated solar panels on the roof where appropriate. This is the site viewed from Cleveland Road. The access to the site would be to the left of the slide. The retained sycamore and silver birch can also be seen in this shot on the right hand side. This is the existing amenity space available to the flats, which would be much reduced by the proposed scheme. Note the outdoor spaces are used as amenity space to enjoy, but also for more practical reasons such as washing lines. The corner of 14 Queensway can be seen in this shot on the right hand side, and the proposed building would be just 3.9 metres from this property. It's worth noting that the proposed building is single storey and the landscaping plan shows a hedgerow between the two. It is also worth noting that the flats on this row have amenity space to the other side of the building. This is a shot from within the site, just looking back to Cleveland Road. Just note there's a slight change in levels. I'll just just a few slides left, just going through of the site itself. There's the fence that's been installed there. This is taken from 15 Birkenstyle Avenue. It shows the boundary, has concrete panels, has a concrete panel fence as well as the existing hedgerow. And this shows the garden space of number 15 Birkenstyle Avenue, which is landscape with ornamental pond, a mix of hard surfacing and grass, and mature planting, and other ornamental features. Whilst the site has some difficulties due to its close relationship with adjoining residential properties, we consider that, subject to the suggested conditions, amended as set out in the late representations, that the proposal is acceptable in planning terms and is therefore recommended for approval. Thank you.
Thank you for that, Stephen. Right then, colleagues, we have one speaker on this, which again is Neil Clark from Ricknold Homes. I think you know the process.
Thanks, Chair.
Whenever you're ready. Thanks.
Thank you. So this is phase 2 of our larger proposal for regeneration of the existing homes in Stonebroom, including replacement of an existing community building. You may have seen on the plan for the area, the existing hall is less than 100 metres away from this proposal and is surrounded by existing dwellings as it is. We are simply relocating from one location to another, with a much better, higher quality building. The existing building was built at the same time as the prefab bungalows and is really no longer fit for purpose. It has substantial investment requirements to continue its use and to maintain its accessibility for the preschool. The preschool has been in use since the 1950s in the area and has a waiting list for local children to actually access the facilities they provide. The food pantry, which is proposed to be as part of this usage, is actually being provided with one of the existing prefab bungalows to enable it to run its facility. They are being provided that with free of charge at the moment, and the proposal is to move that provision into the new proposed building should this go ahead. The existing facility has no vehicle access at all, and is very challenging for parents when it's arrival time and finishing time, and obviously for emergency services access if that was required. The proposal in this application seeks to provide a modern, flexible building that provides a home for the preschool, as I mentioned, and is far more suited to their needs. The design has been developed in full consultation with that organisation and takes account of national requirements in terms of preschool provision for space, for toileting and disabled facilities, etc. Every resident surrounding the proposed site has had a personal visit from myself or my colleague to discuss the proposals and to listen to their individual concerns. The residents of the flats, whilst they do have currently access to the whole amenity space, they generally use the small part of the grass area that is immediately behind their access to their flat. So, thank you. Whilst there is a larger area, most of them do not use that, and it's simply maintained as grass at this current time. But every single person has had the opportunity to speak to myself or my colleague about their concerns, and certainly the residents where gardens have been reduced have welcomed that because they were a burden to them because of the requirements to upkeep their garden given the size that they previously were. Thank you.
Thank you. Do any members have any questions? Councillor Hancock.
Thanks, Chair. Thanks for clarifying one that I had got about the garden space. The other bit is just really to put it into context based on the number of objections we've got. How many people overall have you spoken to, Neil?
I don't know the number off the top of my head, but if you literally counted up on the plan, every single dwelling that backs...
Just a ballpark figure.
30, something
Right,
like that.
no, that's brilliant, thank you.
Any other members got any questions? I've got one for you. Just regarding the parking, is that amount of parking required for the new building as the old hall had no parking?
Because part of the access to the site is actually removing one of the existing parking spaces, it's a combination of ensuring that there is adequate parking to replace what's there and for the use of the hall. So there are staff for the preschool, and the parking is predominant for them rather than actual general public parking. So we've assessed the number of vehicles that actually currently are parked on the road by staff that use the existing facility.
Councillor Gay.
Yeah, I just wanted to ask about outside space that's dedicated to the preschool. Perhaps that's the bit at the back there, is it? Yeah.
Just as a point of interest, is the current building, is that self-funding?
That's a good question. So the current building belongs to the District Council, and the preschool have a lease which covers their use, and they pay for the running costs. They do not pay for maintenance or upkeep.
So just on that, how do you intend going forward with that, with this new building? Is this going to be a cost to the council?
So the construction, the cost to construct it is a District Council cost. The ongoing running costs in terms of utilities, cleaning, maintenance, not maintenance, but waste disposal, things like that, are covered by a proposed lease with the preschool. Maintenance would remain with the District Council as it is with the current building as it stands. Clearly, there will be a significant saving on maintenance compared with the existing facility because it's a wooden shed essentially at the moment. So.
Right, thank you for that. Right, members, no further questions? If you'd like to retake your seat, then thank you. Right then, colleagues, you now have the opportunity to put questions to officers about the application. As always, I would like to keep this part of the proceedings focused on getting clarity about any points you are not sure of. Once we have done this, we can then have our discussion about the application based on all we have heard and read. No questions for officers. Nobody's. Right, thank you. Right then, colleagues, I am now going to open the floor for debate. Which nobody wants to contribute to. So we'll now open the floor to motions. Having heard everything and read everything today and the officer's recommendations before us, what is the view of the committee on the application? Councillor Hancock.
Thanks, Chair. I move that we accept officer recommendations with the amended conditions that we've got on block.
Thank you, Councillor. We'll put that to the vote, please. We've got one less. Oh, there we go. Still one short.
Still one less.
Right. That's passed. Thank you, members. Right, we now move on to item 9, planning appeals. I am now going to call on the planning officers to explain our next report, item 9, appeals lodged and determined. Over to you, Graham.
Thanks, Chair. So we've had 3 appeals lodged. So the first one, the reconstruction of a former blacksmith's workshop. Some of you might remember this one. It's already been refused and dismissed at appeal. This is a slightly revised scheme that's come in, and it's been refused again by officers, and a new appeal has been submitted. That's at Quarry Lane at Woolly Moor. The next one, a 2-storey dwelling at Nether Birchett Farm off the main road in Dronfield. So that's been refused for about 5 reasons. So greenbelt reasons, listed building, lack of coal mining and ecological reports, and a poor access to the site. The third item is at Dyche Lane, Coal Aston, the battery storage, which again was refused on greenbelt, landscape and flood risk concerns. So all those 3 appeals have been lodged. I'm not 100% sure what progress we've made with all of those. I know the bottom one, we haven't got a start letter on that one yet, so they're just ones to perhaps keep an eye on. We've had no appeals allowed since last committee, and we've had 3 appeals dismissed. So the first one at Huntingdon at Brackenfield Lane at Wessington, so that was purely on design, on its design merit, so we managed to succeed at that appeal. That was a good result, so well worth a read. The next one, Apple Tree Cottages at Corbriggs. So this was a mix of extensions, and that one was refused on character and appearance on the host dwelling, and again another success, good success for us. The third one, 23 Main Road at Marsh Lane. So this was conversion of a property which involved increasing the ridge height. So that was inappropriate development in the Greenbelt, and no very special circumstances were found to allow the appeal. So that was another one that was dismissed. We've got no other appeals withdrawn, and that concludes the presentation on that one, Chair.
Thank you, Graham. Does any members have any questions on the report? Councillor Foster?
Thank you, Chair. Just like to say well done, very well done for the work you've done on that. Absolutely fantastic. And can you make sure that you do exactly the same with the others that have just been lodged, especially that battery storage site? Thank you.
I've got one question. You know the one at Corbriggs, Graham? But is that now going to enforcement?
Yeah, I think the next steps will be to discuss that with Julian's team. The enforcement team will look at next steps for that one.
Thank you. Right then, colleagues, do we agree to note the report? And we thank you for your work on that. Right, colleagues, I have no urgent business. I declare the meeting closed. And thanks for everyone for attending.